You are watching DIY by Nikki Foster. Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how I transformed this wall that was boring and plain into this fun, bright, and airy space. This is a pattern wallpaper that does not need professional installation. And here are the tools that I'll be using: a pair of scissors, a measuring tape, a ruler, a container filled with water, a sponge, a pencil, and a wallpaper smoothing tool. This wallpaper is pre-pasted, so I don't need to use any extra adhesive or anything. I'm thinking I just have to add water and stick it to the wall. Once I open it, I will see what the instructions entails, and if not, I will be making a trip to Home Depot or Lowe's, and we'll see how this goes. The first thing I'm doing is cleaning the base of the trim. Tiny particles of dust can collect here on this tiny ledge, so I'm just wiping it off with some Mrs. Meyer's cleaning spray and a paper towel. I wanted the wallpaper to hit just at the trim border, so I removed all the dust and debris so that the glue from the wallpaper could adhere properly. Next, I'm taking my measuring tape and measuring the wall. I am measuring from the top of the trim border to the corner of the ceiling, and I got 93 inches. And just in case I needed a little wiggle room, I gave myself an extra inch and a half, so I actually cut the wallpaper length to 94 and a half inches. Okay, wish me luck. I am nervous. At this point, I just kind of realized I'm doing a patterned wallpaper and I was gonna have to line up the lines. So I kind of got a little scared about it. And I'm just looking to see which way was I supposed to do the pattern. So I ended up just going for it, dipping it in the water. And again, the bucket is right in there. It's a big giant bucket filled with water that I have in the corner. And I'm just soaking the wallpaper, making it as saturated as possible so that the glue is activated. And then now I'm just going to apply it to the wall. So for the first panel of the wallpaper, I stick the panel as close to the corner as possible. And by corner, I'm talking about the vertical corner where the other wall meets. But I'm also trying to make sure it's as close to the ceiling as possible too. I use my hands to press and smooth out first just to make sure it's positioned properly. And then once the wallpaper was where I wanted it, I took the wallpaper smoothing tool and used it to flatten out any bubbles and just to make sure the wallpaper was smooth and flat against the wall. There is some sort of excess glue that globs out of the wallpaper that I did not zoom in on. It just was super gross. But just to let you know, if you are planning to do a wallpaper covering that's a pre-pasted one, it's just some sort of glue that when you're scraping it to make sure that it's against the wall smoothly, it does come out. The next thing I'm doing is I'm just taking a sponge and wiping any excess of the glue that came off. And now I'm on to the next panel. This time I took the dry roll of wallpaper to use it as my measuring guide. This was essential in getting my pattern to line up properly. I used the top of the roll and made some sort of marking with my finger, a pencil, or even I creased the paper where the lines should meet. Once I cut it from the roll, I measured the full panel on the wall. It was still dry, but I wanted to make sure that the lines would indeed line up. Next, the steps repeat similar to the first panel. I saturate the wallpaper panel with water so that the glue is activated. Then I place it on the wall, but this time I'm making sure it lines up with the pattern to the left of it. Then I'm smoothing it out again with my hand, and then once it looks good, I grab the wallpaper tool and smooth it out again. One trick that helped me apply the wallpaper easily was overlapping the edges just a tiny bit. This way, I did not have any spaces in between the wallpaper panels, but also so that the pattern on the wallpaper would line up seamlessly. I paid a lot of attention to the panels of the wallpaper lining up with one another. In my opinion, this helped me get professional looking results for way less than actual professional pricing. So here we are. The wallpaper from Amazon just came, so I messed up and I mismeasured, so I had to stop for a couple days and wait for the wallpaper to come. So here I am. I'm about to finish this wall with the wallpaper. But then the other thing I noticed was that when I cut the wallpaper at the top, I wanted it to be even. So some parts at the ceiling seam, there is some of the old beige color showing through. So what I'm going to do is just kind of paint in the corners to make sure that it looks as flawless as possible. And then I'm gonna do the wallpaper and take it from there. In retrospect, I think that I could have actually painted the whole entire wall. I didn't think about that, some of the parts, not if they weren't lined up, that some of the beige would show through. But I'm glad I was able to fix the mistake and move forward. Whew. All right, nervous about this damn wallpaper, man. Also, the other like tidbit was like I totally didn't even measure. Like I know like that's like totally bad, but I had bought this wallpaper and the roll was so thick that I thought I was like, "Oh, this I'm just doing one wall. This is definitely going to work." And it totally did not. So, learn from my mistakes, always measure. One of the techniques that I did when I was using the wallpaper tool was I made sure the seams where the pattern lined up to the panel next to it were flattened first. Then if the paper somehow wrinkled, I just lift the wallpaper up from the bottom with my hand and just smooth it with my hand too, and then follow up with the wallpaper tool. Yep. Okay. I'm hoping that this does not look like garbage when I'm done. I kept seeing the top part of the corner by the ceiling with the beige kind of like I could see it so clearly, and I just was like so nervous about it, but I just kept going. I measured, the next part of the panels and just, made sure that those were as close to the ceiling as possible. And I figured at the end I could like figure out maybe something to do, like I could just paint it in the corner and see how it looked. So that's basically what I did. I am happy that I did decide to do the wallpaper though. I mean, when I was doing it, I was like nervous that it was gonna look bad, but I am happy that I just kind of like just kept going and just like, what's the worst that could happen? I take it off and do it over. So I just kept going, and I love the way the wallpaper was looking though. Like aside from like the corner issue that I had, or the ceiling to corner, whatever you want to call it, issue that I had, the rest of the wallpaper was just like, it looked really good. It would brighten up the room, and I really did love it. So here I was at the home stretch, almost done. I thought like, oh, it'll be great if it'll just meet at the corner and I won't have to do any weird cutting. But of course, it did not work out that way. I did have to go and cut a tiny little sliver to get into the corner. But the wallpaper project in all was like really good. It was a quick project, and I'm glad that Amazon really came through with the same exact pattern. I had looked at the style number, and I'll be sure to put the wallpaper that I used from Home Depot and Amazon. It's the same exact, but if you prefer to order one over the other, I'll just make sure I put both in there. All right, so I'm gonna cut this last corner here. All right. I really don't know what's about to happen. We got to figure it out. I know I need this corner. So anyway, let's just get her done. With the skinny sliver that was left over in the corner, it was hard to measure the exact size that I would need. I got just so nervous about it, so I ended up just keeping the piece a little bit larger, probably like double the size that I actually needed, and I made sure that the piece was like really inset into the corner. I just used my finger to make sure that it was like in there, and then I would go back and cut with my X-Acto knife later. I did cut this part while it was still wet, but for the trim and the excess by the ceiling, I ended up waiting until it was dry to cut it. It did cut better when it was dry, and I do recommend that method over top of cutting it when it's wet. So here's the trim part that I was talking about. I'm using my L-shaped ruler and my X-Acto knife to cut a nice, smooth, clean line across. When it's dry, it just helps to make sure the cut just goes on really clean, and I'm able to just like peel off the excess wallpaper that I don't need from the trim part in a smooth way. And then the same thing with the ceiling. I did the same exact way. I just used the ruler. I just cut the X-Acto knife in there, and then I peel off. Just it was like a little tiny bit, and I peel it off, and it looked really good. So here's how it was looking, and I ended up deciding to go ahead and paint. I used frog tape so it doesn't, like the paint wouldn't bleed onto the wallpaper, and I removed it while it was wet, and it looked really good. I was happy with how it turned out. And this is how the wallpaper looked after I was done and it was dry. It looked really good. You could not even see the corner part that I was like complaining about the whole time I was doing it and worried about. It was I was worried for nothing. The paint really helped, and the next time I do like a wallpaper project, I would just paint in the corner just to be on the on the safe side. This is how the room looked before. It did not look like a toddler room at all, and this is how the room looks after. Before it was very dull and boring, and now it is fun, bright, and airy. If you have not watched the whole kids bedroom transformation video, I will be posting it right after this one, so be sure to watch that. My goal was to provide valuable information from my experience, and I'm hoping with this information I inspired you to do your own DIY wallpaper project using pre-pasted wallpaper that I used. Also, I am very active in my comment section, so do not be afraid to drop me any questions or comments. See you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.